In a quiet African village surrounded by thick ancient trees, there lived a girl named Amara. She was not like the others. While other girls feared the forest, Amara felt drawn to it, as if something deep inside the shadows was calling her name. The elders always warned, "Never enter the forbidden forest after sunset, for the spirits walk freely when darkness falls." But Amara had always wondered, what if the spirits were not evil? What if they were just lonely? Every evening, as the sun melted into the horizon and the sky turned gold, Amara would sit at the edge of the forest, listening to the wind whisper through the tall trees. And one evening, the forest finally whispered back. Soft voice, gentle, mysterious, not human. "Amara." She froze. Her heart pounded loudly. Again the voice called, this time closer. "Amara, do not be afraid." The trees rustled though there was no wind. The air grew cold. And from the shadows, a tall figure slowly emerged. He was handsome, yet not entirely human. His eyes glowed faintly like moonlight. His skin shimmered like bark under the night sky. Amara's breath caught. "Who are you?" she whispered. The stranger bowed slightly. "I am Kale, the spirit of the forest." That night Amara should have run. She should have screamed. She should have obeyed the village warnings. But instead she stayed. And that was the beginning of a love story that would curse a village, awaken ancient spirits, and force Amara to choose between her human world and the spirit she was destined to marry. Because some love stories are not written by humans. Some are written by the forest itself. Before we continue, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know where you are watching from in the comment below. The night after Amara first heard the mysterious voice, she could not sleep. The wind outside her small hut whispered against the dry palm leaves on the roof, sounding almost like soft footsteps pacing back and forth. She turned on her mat, her heart restless. Was it real? Or had she imagined the glowing-eyed stranger in the forest? The elders always said the forest was alive. They said spirits lived inside the ancient trees, watching, waiting. But Amara had never believed them. Till now. She closed her eyes tightly, but the image of the stranger returned again. Tall, calm, with eyes that shone like silver moonlight. "I am Kale, the spirit of the forest." His voice had been gentle, not frightening. And that was what disturbed her the most. Because monsters were supposed to be terrifying. Not kind, not calm, not beautiful. The warnings of the elders. The next morning, the village was already awake before sunrise. Women pounded yam in wooden mortars. Children chased each other between huts, and the smell of roasted plantain filled the air. Amara stepped outside quietly, still lost in her thoughts. Her grandmother, Mama Nola, was sitting on a low wooden stool, sorting dried pepper into a basket. The old woman looked up sharply the moment she saw Amara. "You went near the forest again, didn't you?" she asked. Amara froze. "How did you know, Grandma?" Mama Nola's eyes darkened. "The forest speaks to those who listen too closely," she replied slowly. "And you, child, have always listened." Amara swallowed nervously. "Grandma, are the spirits truly evil?" The old woman dropped a pepper suddenly. It rolled across the ground, forgotten. "Never ask such a question," she whispered urgently, looking around as if someone might be listening. She leaned closer. Long ago, before this village was built, the forest spirits lived in peace with humans. But greed, betrayal, and broken promises turned them into shadows of what they once were. Amara's heart beat faster. "So they hate us." Mama Nola sighed deeply. "Some do. Some don't. But the most dangerous spirits are the ones who learn to love humans." Amara's breath caught. "Why?" "Because their love is not like ours," the old woman replied. "It is deeper, stronger, possessive. And once a spirit chooses you, it never truly lets you go." A strange chill ran down Amara's spine. She quickly changed the subject, pretending she wasn't afraid. But inside, her thoughts echoed loudly. What if Kale had already chosen me? The pull of the forest. All day, Amara tried to focus on her chores, fetching water, washing clothes by the river, helping prepare food. But every sound reminded her of the forest. The rustling leaves, the distant echo of birds, the strange feeling that someone unseen was watching her. By sunset she could no longer resist. Her feet carried her, almost without thinking, toward the edge of the forbidden forest. The sky glowed orange, fading slowly into deep purple. Long shadows stretched across the earth like reaching fingers. She stopped at the boundary where the villagers always warned. Do not cross after sunset. Her heart pounded loudly. I should go back, she thought. But then the wind blew softly, carrying the same whisper from the night before. Amara! Her eyes widened. The voice was real. Not a dream. Not imagination. Slowly, hesitantly, she stepped across the invisible line into the forest. The forest that breathes. The moment Amara entered, the air changed. The sounds of the village disappeared completely. No children laughing. No pots clanging. No distant voices. Only silence. Heavy, ancient, watching silence. Tall trees surrounded her, their thick branches twisting together high above, blocking out the last light of the sun. The forest smelled of damp earth, old leaves, and something strangely sweet. Her footsteps felt louder here. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Suddenly the wind stopped. Even the insects fell silent. Amara's chest tightened. I know you are here, she whispered, trying to sound brave. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then from behind a giant iroko tree, a soft glow appeared. And slowly, Kale stepped forward. The spirit reveals himself. He looked exactly as she remembered. Tall and calm. His hair flowed like dark smoke, and his eyes glowed faintly in the dim forest light. His skin had a strange shimmer, almost like the surface of a tree touched by moonlight. But tonight he seemed more solid, more real. You came back, he said softly. Amara nodded, her voice almost trembling. I needed to know if you were real. Kale smiled gently. I have always been real, Amara. It is humans who often doubt what they cannot understand. She hesitated before asking, why did you call my name? The spirit looked at her for a long time before answering. Because, you heard me. Amara frowned slightly. What does that mean? Many humans pass near this forest every day, Kale explained. But they hear only silence, only fear, only old stories told by elders. But you listened. And when a human truly listens, the forest listens back. A strange warmth filled Amara's chest. So, you chose me. Kale's glowing eyes softened. No, Amara, he said quietly. The forest chose you long before you were born. Her heart skipped. What do you mean? But Kale did not answer immediately. Instead he stepped closer, not threatening, just calm and curious, like he was studying her face. You are not afraid of me, he observed. Amara hesitated, then shook her head slowly. I don't think you want to harm me. The spirit's expression darkened slightly. I would never harm you, he said. His voice was firm now, almost protective. And that was the moment Amara felt something shift deep inside her heart, something she could not explain, something both comforting and dangerous. A dangerous friendship begins. They talked until the moon rose high in the sky. Kale told her stories about the ancient forest, how trees could remember centuries, how rivers carried the voices of ancestors, and how spirits once walked openly among humans before fear separated their worlds. Amara listened in wonder. You must not tell anyone about me, Kale finally warned. Why? Because humans fear what they cannot control, he replied. And fear turns into violence very quickly. She nodded slowly. I won't tell anyone. The spirit looked relieved, but also strangely sad. You should go back now, he said softly. If you stay too long, the forest will begin to claim you. Amara blinked in confusion. Claim me. But Kale only smiled mysteriously. Go, Amara, before the night grows deeper. Reluctantly, she turned and began walking back toward the village. But just before she left the forest completely, she looked over her shoulder. Kale was still standing there, watching her. His glowing eyes filled with something she could not yet understand. Not hunger, not anger, but something far more powerful. Attachment. The omen. That night, as Amara slept, the wind blew stronger than usual. Leaves swirled across the village paths. Dogs barked nervously. The elders woke from sleep with troubled hearts, sensing a disturbance in the unseen world. Mama Nola sat up suddenly in her hut, breathing heavily. She whispered to herself in fear. It has begun. Outside, deep within the forbidden forest, Kale stood beside the oldest tree, his hand resting against its ancient bark. The tree glowed faintly. "The bond has been formed," whispered a deep, unseen voice from the forest itself. Kale closed his eyes. "I know. You understand what this means," the voice continued. "Yes," he replied softly. "She will either become my greatest blessing, or the curse that destroys both our worlds." The wind howled louder, and far away in her sleep, Amara stirred uneasily, unaware that her simple decision to return to the forest had already set powerful forces in motion. For once a human girl forms a bond with a forest spirit, destiny begins to write a story that cannot easily be erased. For 3 nights after her second visit to the forest, Amara tried to stay away. She told herself it was foolish, dangerous, forbidden. But every evening, just as the sun dipped behind the tall trees, her chest tightened with a strange longing she had never felt before. It wasn't fear. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It was something deeper. Something pulling her gently but firmly toward the forest, like an invisible thread tied to her heart. By the 4th evening, she could no longer resist. The restless heart. Amara finished her chores quickly that day, barely speaking to anyone. Even her closest friend noticed the change. "You have been quiet lately," her friend said while they fetched water from the stream. "Are you sick?" Amara forced a small smile. "I'm fine. Just tired." But inside, her thoughts were racing. Why do I keep thinking about him? Why does the forest feel like it's calling me home? That word startled her. The forest was not her home. Was it? She shook her head quickly, trying to clear the thought away. But deep down, she knew something inside her was changing. Something she could not control. The second meeting. That evening, as darkness slowly covered the sky, Amara once again walked toward the forbidden forest. This time she didn't stop at the boundary. She walked straight in. The forest welcomed her with its usual silence, thick, ancient, and watchful. Fireflies flickered faintly between the trees, lighting her path like tiny floating stars. She didn't call his name. She didn't need to. He was already there. Kale stepped out from behind a wide tree trunk, his glowing eyes soft with what looked like relief. "You came," he said quietly. Amara nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I tried not to." The spirit tilted his head slightly, curious. "Why?" "Because the elders say this forest is dangerous," she replied. "They say spirits bring misfortune." Kale's expression darkened for a moment, but he quickly hid it behind a calm smile. "Humans often fear what they do not understand," he said gently. "But tell me, Amara, since you met me, have you felt harmed?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No." "Have I threatened you?" "No." "Then why does your heart still tremble?" Amara placed a hand on her chest slowly. "Because I don't understand what is happening to me." The spirit looked at her deeply, not with danger but with something heavier, something almost sad. "That," he said softly, "is because our worlds were never meant to touch." The hidden truth. They walked deeper into the forest together that night. The trees grew taller and older the further they went, their roots twisting like ancient serpents across the ground. At the center of the forest stood a massive tree, larger than any Amara had ever seen. Its trunk was wide enough to fit 10 people around it. Its bark glowed faintly, pulsing like it had a heartbeat. Amara gasped. "What is this place?" Kale stopped beside the tree, his voice quieter now. "This is the heart tree," he said. "The oldest living spirit in the forest. It remembers everything, every human who ever stepped into this land, and every spirit who ever loved one." Amara's breath caught. Loved a human. Kale didn't answer immediately. Instead, he placed his palm gently against the glowing bark. The tree shimmered in response, and faint images flickered across its surface like moving shadows. Amara stepped closer. She saw visions. A human woman holding hands with a glowing spirit. A man running through the forest, chased by unseen forces. A crying spirit fading away as villagers set the forest on fire long ago. Amara covered her mouth in shock. These are real." Kale nodded slowly. "Yes. Long ago, spirits and humans lived together peacefully. But love between our kinds always ended in tragedy." Her voice trembled. "Why?" The spirit finally looked directly into her eyes. "Because humans grow old. And spirits do not. Because humans fear what they cannot control. And destroy what they fear. And because once a spirit gives its heart, it can never take it back." A heavy silence filled the forest. Amara felt a chill crawl up her spine. "Kale," she whispered, afraid of the answer. "Why did you show me this?" The spirit hesitated. Then he spoke the truth he had been hiding. "Because the moment you heard my voice that night, a bond was formed between us." Her heart stopped. "A bond?" "Yes," he said softly. "A rare connection that only happens once in many centuries. It means your spirit can hear the forest, and the forest can feel your heart." Amara stepped back slightly, overwhelmed. No, that can't be true. But deep inside she knew it was. That explained the strange pull she felt. The whispers. The feeling that the forest was alive whenever she entered it. Tears filled her eyes. "So what does this bond mean?" Kale's glowing eyes dimmed with sadness. "It means, if you continue coming here, your life will slowly intertwine with mine." Her breath shook. "And if I stop coming?" The spirit looked away. "The bond will still remain," he admitted quietly. "But it will become painful for both of us." The first touch. The wind blew softly through the forest, carrying a strange warmth with it. Amara stared at Kale, her mind filled with fear, confusion, and something else she could not deny anymore. She reached out slowly. Her hand trembled as it moved closer to his. "Will it hurt you if I leave?" she asked softly. Kale didn't answer. But his silence was enough. Her fingers finally touched his hand. She expected coldness. Instead she felt warmth. Gentle. Real. Live. Her eyes widened in surprise. "You feel human." Kale gave a small, sad smile. "That is because my spirit has begun to respond to yours." For a moment, neither of them moved. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. But suddenly, the glowing heart tree pulsed brighter, and a deep, unseen voice echoed through the air. "The bond strengthens." Kale quickly pulled his hand away, alarm flashing across his face. "This is moving too fast," he said urgently. "You must not stay long tonight." Amara's chest tightened painfully. "Why does it feel like something is trying to pull me closer to you?" The spirit's voice lowered to a whisper. "Because, Amara, if the bond completes itself, you will no longer belong fully to the human world." Her eyes filled with fear. "You mean, I will become a spirit?" Kale shook his head slowly. "No. Something far more complicated than that." The watching eyes. Unknown to them, hidden deep in the shadows beyond the glowing tree, another pair of eyes watched silently. Ancient. Cold. Jealous. A darker spirit whispered to itself. "So, the forest guardian has finally formed a bond with a human girl." The shadows around it twisted slowly. "This will either strengthen him, or destroy him completely." The spirit's faint smile was filled with quiet malice. "And if he falls, the forest will belong to me." the promise that changed everything. Back at the edge of the forest, Kale stopped Amara before she could leave. "You must promise me something," he said seriously. "What is it?" "No matter what happens, no matter what the villagers say, do not let them discover our connection." Amara hesitated. "But why?" "Because humans fear what they cannot explain," Kale replied. "And if they believe a spirit has chosen one of their daughters, they will try to break the bond by any means necessary." A shiver ran down her spine. "And if they try," she whispered. Kale's glowing eyes darkened for the first time. "Then the forest will not remain silent." Amara swallowed nervously, realizing how dangerous this secret truly was. Still she nodded. "I promise." The spirit relaxed slightly, but deep inside, he knew promises between humans and spirits were rarely easy to keep. As Amara walked back to the village that night, her steps felt heavier than before, because now she understood the truth. This was no longer just a strange friendship. It was something deeper, stronger, irreversible. And somewhere in the unseen world, ancient forces were already awakening, waiting to see whether this bond would bring harmony, or unleash a curse that would change both the human village and the spirit forest forever. After that night at the heart tree, Amara's world began to change in ways she could no longer ignore. The village looked the same. People behaved the same. The sun still rose and set as it always had. But inside her, nothing felt normal anymore. It was as if part of her heart had been left behind in the forest. Change within. Days passed, yet Amara found herself distracted by the smallest things. The wind now sounded like whispers. The rustling of leaves felt like messages meant only for her. Even the birds seemed to pause and watch her when she walked past. One afternoon, while drawing water from the village well, she suddenly heard a faint echo in her mind. "Amara!" She froze, nearly dropping the clay pot. She looked around quickly. No one was near her. Her breathing quickened. "Kale," she thought silently. For a moment, nothing. Then the voice returned, softer but clear. "I can feel your thoughts now." Amara's heart pounded wildly. "You can hear me?" She thought again, unsure. "Yes." She gasped quietly and covered her mouth. The bond was growing stronger. The secret meetings. That evening, she ran to the forest without hesitation. Kale was waiting near the entrance this time, as if he had sensed her coming long before she arrived. "You felt it too," she said immediately. The spirit nodded slowly. "The bond between us is deepening faster than I expected." Amara's voice trembled slightly. "I can hear your voice even when you are not near me. Is that normal?" Kale hesitated before answering. "No," he admitted. "It means your spirit is beginning to respond to the forest. And to me." A mixture of fear and excitement rushed through her. "So, what happens next?" The spirit looked away, troubled. "That depends on you." "On me?" "Yes," he said gently. "If you continue to accept this connection, your heart will slowly learn to exist in both worlds, the human world and the spirit world." Amara stared at him in shock. "Is that even possible?" Kale gave a faint smile. "Rare, dangerous, but possible." Moments of joy. Despite the warnings, their meetings became more frequent. They talked under the moonlight. They walked beside glowing streams hidden deep within the forest. Kale showed her ancient places where trees whispered old songs and flowers glowed faintly in the dark. For the first time in her life, Amara felt completely understood. "You never treat me like I am strange," she told him one night. Kale looked at her softly. "That is because you are not strange to me," he replied. "You are familiar. Like a melody I have heard long ago but almost forgotten." Her cheeks warmed slightly. "And you?" she asked shyly. "What am I to you?" The spirit didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached out slowly, brushing a strand of hair away from her face with gentle care. "You are," he paused, searching for the right word. "Important." Her heart fluttered. That single word felt heavier than any long speech. the first jealous eyes. But not everyone in the spirit world was pleased. Deep within the shadows of the forest, the darker spirit that had been watching them grew restless. Each night the bond between Amara and Kale strengthened. The forest's power around Kale also increased. "That human girl is making him stronger," the shadow spirit hissed quietly. "If this continues, he will become unstoppable, and the forest will forever remain under his protection." Its eyes glowed with quiet anger. "That cannot be allowed." The shadows twisted slowly, forming a plan that would soon test the fragile love growing between a human girl and a forest spirit. The warning dream. That same night, Amara had a dream unlike any she had ever experienced. She stood alone in the forest, but the trees looked older, darker, almost dying. The sky above was red, and the air felt heavy with sorrow. She heard crying, soft at first, then louder. She followed the sound until she reached the heart tree. But the glowing bark was cracked, fading, almost lifeless. And beside it, Kale was kneeling, his body slowly turning into dust that scattered with the wind. "Kale!" she screamed in the dream, running toward him. But an invisible force held her back. "This is the fate of forbidden love," a deep, unseen voice echoed. "When a spirit binds himself to a human, one world must eventually lose what it loves most." Tears streamed down her face. "No, there must be another way." But Kale only smiled sadly in the dream. "If you choose your human life, I will fade. If you choose me, you may never truly return home." She woke up suddenly, breathing heavily, her body covered in cold sweat. The dream felt too real to be ignored. Confession under the moonlight. The next evening, she rushed to the forest again, her heart filled with fear. When she saw Kale, she didn't greet him with a smile this time. "I had a dream," she said immediately. The spirit's expression grew serious. "Tell me." She described everything: the dying tree, his fading form, the voice that spoke of forbidden love. When she finished, Kale was silent for a long time. "So it's true," he finally whispered. Her voice trembled. "What is true?" "That every bond between a human and a spirit eventually demands a sacrifice." Amara felt tears forming in her eyes. "Sacrifice? What kind of sacrifice?" Kale looked directly into her eyes, his glowing gaze filled with both love and fear. "Either the human must let go of the spirit, or the spirit must give up their immortality to remain bound to the human world." Her breath stopped. "You mean, you would become mortal?" "Yes," he said softly. "And one day, I would die like any human." The weight of that truth crushed her chest. "Or," he continued quietly, "you would slowly become more connected to the spirit world and less to the human one." Silence filled the forest. The impossible choice stood between them, even though their feelings were only beginning to grow. The first realization of love. Amara looked at him with trembling eyes. "Why does this hurt so much?" she whispered. Kale stepped closer. "Because what you feel is no longer simple curiosity," he said gently. Her heart beat loudly. "And what do I feel?" The spirit hesitated only a moment. "Love." The word echoed between them like a powerful spell. Amara's tears finally fell. "I was afraid you would say that." "And yet," Kale replied softly, "you are not running away." She shook her head slowly. "I can't. Not anymore." For the first time, she stepped closer to him willingly, placing her hand in his. The forest glowed faintly around them, responding to the emotion binding their hearts together. "I don't know what the future holds," she said quietly. "I don't know if this love will save us or destroy us, but I know one thing." Kale waited. She took a deep breath. "I don't want to pretend these feelings are not real." The spirit's eyes softened with emotion he had never felt in centuries. "Then our destinies are now truly connected," he whispered. The calm before the storm. Above them, the moon shone brightly, bathing the forest in silver light. For a brief moment, everything felt peaceful, perfect, untouched by danger. But far away, hidden beyond the deepest shadows, the watching spirit finally put its plan into motion. If love is their strength, it murmured coldly, then love shall also become their greatest weakness. The wind rose suddenly, carrying a distant echo of drums from the village. Warning drums. Something was wrong. Something had happened. Amara's heart dropped instantly. That sound. Those are the village alarm drums. Kale's expression darkened. Then our secret may no longer be safe. And as the drums echoed louder across the night, both of them realized the peaceful days of hidden meetings were about to end. Because once humans begin to suspect the involvement of spirits, fear spreads quickly. And fear always demands action. The alarm drums echoed across the village like thunder rolling through the night. Boom, boom, boom. Amara's heart pounded in rhythm with the drums as she and Kale stood frozen at the edge of the forest. That sound means danger, she whispered fearfully. Something terrible must have happened. Kale's glowing eyes darkened as he listened carefully to the distant echoes carried by the wind. No, he said slowly. That is not the sound of danger. It is the sound of fear. Amara turned to him quickly. What's the difference? The spirit's voice lowered, heavy with worry. When humans are in danger, they run or hide. But when humans are afraid of something they do not understand, they prepare to fight it. A cold chill crawled down Amara's spine. You don't think they know about us, do you? Kale didn't answer immediately. But his silence was answer enough. The suspicion begins. That night, the village square was filled with restless voices and flickering torchlight. Elders stood in a circle, speaking in low, urgent tones while villagers whispered anxiously among themselves. Amara slipped quietly into the crowd, trying to appear normal. Her grandmother, Mama Nola, grabbed her arm the moment she saw her. "Where have you been?" the old woman demanded sharply. I was by the river," Amara lied softly. Mama Nola's eyes searched her face suspiciously, but before she could question further, the village chief raised his staff for silence. "My people," the chief began gravely, "for several nights now, strange signs have appeared around our land." Murmurs spread quickly. The crops near the forest edge are growing unusually fast. Animals refuse to enter certain paths, and some villagers claim to hear whispers calling names from the trees. Amara's heart nearly stopped. The chief continued, his voice heavy. "These are not natural events. They are signs that the spirit world is stirring once again." Fear spread through the crowd like wildfire. One man shouted, "The forest spirits are angry." Another added, "They are trying to lure our children like they did long ago." Mama Nola's grip on Amara's arm tightened painfully. "Tell me the truth," she whispered urgently. "Have you been going near that forest?" Amara hesitated. That single pause was enough. The old woman's face filled with dread. "Oh no, child, what have you done?" The jealous spirit's trap. Deep within the forest, the dark watching spirit moved silently between the trees, its shadow stretching unnaturally long across the ground. It raised its hand slowly, whispering ancient words. Immediately, the wind howled violently. Branches shook. Strange glowing symbols briefly appeared on tree trunks near the forest's edge. Signs meant to frighten humans. "They must believe the forest is becoming hostile," the spirit hissed quietly. "Only then will they force the girl away from Kale and weaken his power." The shadows twisted with cruel satisfaction. "And once he is weakened, the forest will finally belong to me." The confrontation. Back in the village, the meeting ended with a decision that made Amara's blood run cold. "We must perform a protection ritual at the forest boundary," the chief declared. "No one is to enter the forest until we are certain the spirits are not planning harm." The villagers agreed loudly. Amara felt the ground beneath her feet shift. No one is to enter the forest. That meant she could no longer see Kale freely. Her chest tightened painfully. Later that night, Mama Nola sat beside her inside the hut, her expression serious and full of worry. "Amara," she said quietly, "you must answer me honestly. Have you spoken to anything, or anyone, inside that forest. Tears filled Amara's eyes instantly. She couldn't lie anymore. "Yes," she whispered. The old woman gasped, covering her mouth in horror. "Child, do you know what you have done?" "He is not evil, Grandma," Amara cried softly. "He has never harmed me. He only talks to me. He protects me." Mama Nola shook her head in despair. "That is how it always begins," she said sadly. "The spirit shows kindness first, then forms a bond, and once the human heart is fully attached, separation becomes impossible." Amara's voice broke. "I think it may already be too late." The painful decision. That night, she secretly ran to the forest one more time, ignoring the warnings and fear growing in the village. Kale was already waiting, his expression tense. "I heard the drums," he said. "The humans suspect something." Amara nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "They plan to perform rituals to block the forest. They will forbid anyone from entering." Kale's shoulders stiffened. "That means they are trying to break our bond." Her voice trembled. "Can they do that?" The spirit looked at her sadly. "They cannot break it completely, but they can weaken it. And if fear grows strong enough, they may attempt something far worse." Her heart pounded. "Worse? Like what?" Kale's voice dropped to a whisper. "They may try to destroy me." Amara's breath caught in shock. "No, they would never." "They would," he interrupted gently. "Humans have done it before. When fear becomes stronger than understanding, they choose destruction." Tears streamed freely now. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. Kale stepped closer, his glowing eyes filled with deep emotion. "And I do not want to lose you either." The forest around them shimmered faintly, reacting to their pain. The betrayal. Just as Amara moved closer to him, a loud snap echoed behind them. Both of them turned sharply. Mama Nola stood at the edge of the trees, holding a burning torch, her face pale with fear and heartbreak. "Amara," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Step away from that spirit." Amara froze in horror. "Grandma, please, you don't understand." "I understand too well," the old woman cried. "I have seen what happens when spirits bind themselves to humans. It always ends in sorrow." Kale stepped back respectfully, his voice calm but firm. "I have no wish to harm her," he said. Mama Nola's eyes filled with both anger and pain. "Spirits always say that," she replied bitterly. "But their love always costs something, and it is always the human who pays the highest price." Amara grabbed her grandmother's hand desperately. "Please. He is not like the others." The old woman's eyes softened for a moment, then hardened again. "Come home, Amara," she pleaded, "before this bond grows stronger than your own will." Amara looked between the two, her grandmother who raised her, and the spirit who now held her heart. Her chest felt like it was being torn into two pieces. I can't leave him," she whispered weakly. Mama Nola closed her eyes in sorrow. "Then forgive me, child." Before Amara could react, the old woman threw the torch onto the ground and began chanting ancient protective words passed down from the elders. Immediately, glowing symbols formed in the air, creating a barrier between Amara and Kale. The spirit staggered slightly, his glow flickering. "Stop!" Amara screamed. "You're hurting him." Mama Nola's tears flowed freely as she continued the chant. "I am trying to save you." The barrier pulsed stronger, forcing Kale backward deeper into the forest. Their hands stretched toward each other desperately, but could not touch. "Amara!" Kale called. "Kale!" she cried back. The invisible force finally pushed him completely into the shadows, separating them. The bond between them trembled violently, but did not break. The curse awakens. As Kale disappeared into the darkness, the forest let out a deep, echoing roar like a wounded creature. The ground shook slightly. The wind howled wildly. Leaves spiraled into the air like a storm had been unleashed. Mama Nola gasped in fear. The forest. It is reacting. Far away, the jealous dark spirit smiled wickedly. Yes, let the forest rage, it whispered. Let humans believe the guardian spirit has turned hostile. Lightning flashed across the sky. Rain began to fall heavily. And as Amara collapsed to her knees, crying helplessly, she realized a terrifying truth. Her secret was no longer safe. Her love was no longer hidden. And the fragile balance between the human village and the spirit forest had just been shattered. The curse had begun. The storm did not stop for 3 days. Rain poured endlessly over the village, turning paths into mud and rivers into raging streams. The wind howled through the trees as though the forest itself was crying out in pain. Inside her grandmother's hut, Amara sat silently by the window, her eyes empty and swollen from endless tears. Since that night, she had not seen Kale again, but she could still feel him, faint, weak, distant, like a heartbeat struggling to continue from far away. The fading bond. Each morning, she placed her hand over her chest, hoping to feel the warm connection that once pulsed between them. But it was growing weaker. And the more it faded, the more unbearable the emptiness became. Mama Nola watched her quietly from across the room, guilt heavy in her old eyes. I only wanted to protect you, she finally said softly one evening. Amara didn't respond immediately. Instead, she whispered in a broken voice. You didn't just separate us, Grandma. You wounded the forest itself. The old woman's hands trembled. That spirit was dangerous, she insisted weakly. Love between human and spirit has never ended well. Amara finally turned to face her, tears sliding slowly down her cheeks. But what if this time was different, she asked. What if we were meant to change that story? Mama Nola had no answer. Because deep inside, she was no longer certain she had done the right thing. The village's decision. On the 4th day, the rain suddenly stopped. But the silence that followed felt even heavier. The village elders gathered again in the square, their faces grim. Strange events had continued. Crops near the forest had withered overnight, animals refused to graze close to the trees, and a deep, unnatural mist lingered at the forest boundary. The spirits are angry, the chief declared. Our rituals have angered the forest guardian. Amara's heart clenched painfully. They thought Kale was responsible. We must perform the final cleansing ritual, one elder suggested. If the guardian spirit has become hostile, we must bind it permanently so it never crosses into our land again. A cold scream formed inside Amara's chest. Bind him. That would trap Kale within the forest forever, weakening him, possibly destroying him completely. Without thinking, she stepped forward. No, she cried loudly. All eyes turned toward her in shock. The chief narrowed his eyes. Why do you object, child? Amara's hands trembled, but she spoke bravely. Because the forest guardian is not the enemy. Something else is manipulating the forest and making you believe he has turned against us. Murmurs spread quickly. The chief's voice hardened. You speak as though you know this spirit personally. Silence fell. Mama Nola closed her eyes in despair. Amara swallowed hard, then nodded slowly. Yes, she admitted. Because I do. Gasps echoed around the square. Fear replaced curiosity instantly. The chief stepped back cautiously. Then it is true, he said. You are the girl chosen by the forest spirit. Amara lifted her chin, her voice steady despite her fear. I was not forced. Chose to listen. I chose to care for him. And he has never once harmed this village. The elders exchanged worried glances. But fear had already grown too strong. Even if he has not harmed us yet, one elder said, the bond between you may be awakening forces we cannot control. The chief raised his staff firmly. The ritual will proceed tonight. Amara's world shattered in that moment. The journey back to the forest. As the sun began to set, Amara made her decision. She could not let them destroy Kale, even if it meant leaving her human life behind forever. Without telling anyone, she slipped away from the village and ran toward the forest, her feet barely touching the ground. The boundary that once felt welcoming now felt heavy and tense. The mist parted slowly as she entered. "Kale!" she called desperately. For a moment, only silence answered. Then finally, a faint glow appeared deeper within the trees. She ran toward it. And there he was. But he looked weaker. His glow was dimmer. His posture less steady. The strong presence he once carried now felt fragile, like a fading flame. Tears streamed down her face instantly. "They're planning to bind you tonight," she cried. "You have to leave the forest. Hide somewhere far away." Kale shook his head slowly. "I cannot leave," he said gently. "My existence is tied to this forest. If I abandon it, both of us will suffer." Her heart broke even more. "Then what do we do?" she whispered helplessly. The spirit looked at her for a long time. His glowing eyes filled with love and deep sorrow. "There is only one way to end this conflict," he said quietly. Her breath trembled. "What way?" Kale took a slow step closer. "One of us must choose a sacrifice. The ultimate choice." The forest grew silent as if the world itself was waiting for their decision. "If I sever the bond," Kale explained softly, "you will return fully to the human world. Your life will continue normally. But you will forget me completely." Amara's eyes widened in horror. "Forget you?" He nodded. "You will feel a vague sadness sometimes. But you will never remember why." Her chest tightened painfully. "And the other choice?" she asked. Kale hesitated. "The other choice is for you to accept the bond fully. To become my eternal partner, connected to both the human and spirit worlds." Her voice trembled. "What would that mean?" "It means you would age much slower," he said gently. "You would never fully belong to the human world again. Some would fear you. Some would not understand you. But you would remain by my side, as my bride, forever." The word echoed softly. "Bride." Tears filled her eyes again. "You're asking me to choose between my old life and a life with you." Kale's voice broke slightly. "Yes. The final ritual begins." Suddenly, distant chanting echoed from the edge of the forest. The villagers had arrived. Torches flickered between the trees as elders began the binding ritual, their voices rising in powerful ancient words meant to weaken forest spirits. Kale winced slightly, his glow flickering. "They have begun," he said quietly. "You must choose now, Amara." Her heart pounded louder than ever before. She thought of her grandmother, her childhood friends, her human life filled with simple moments and familiar comfort. Then she looked at Kale, the spirit who had never lied to her, never harmed her, who only loved her in the quiet, patient way the forest loves the earth. Her tears stopped. Her fear faded. And for the first time since everything began, her heart felt certain. She stepped closer to him. "I choose you." The forest exploded with light. The wind roared. Leaves spiraled wildly. The heart tree glowed brighter than ever before as the bond between them completed itself fully. Kale's eyes widened in shock. "Amara, are you sure? This path cannot be undone." She nodded firmly. "I am not losing my freedom," she said softly. "I am choosing a different kind of life. One where love is stronger than fear." She reached for his hand. This time no barrier stopped them. Their fingers intertwined, warm and real, sealing the bond between human heart and forest spirit forever. The transformation. A gentle glow surrounded Amara, not changing her into a spirit, but marking her as something new. A bridge between two worlds. The chanting villagers suddenly stopped, their ritual failing as the forest calmed instantly. The wind softened, the mist cleared, the dark storm clouds disappeared. Peace returned. The jealous shadow spirit screamed in fury deep within the forest. "No. The bond has completed. I can no longer break it." His plan had failed. The forest had chosen its guardian, and his human bride. The return to the village. The next morning, Amara returned to the village one last time, holding Kale's hand calmly. The villagers stepped back in fear, but the forest around them remained peaceful, not hostile. Mama Nola walked forward slowly, tears in her eyes. "You made your choice," the old woman whispered. Amara nodded gently. "Yes, but I have not abandoned you, or the village. I will protect both worlds now." Kale bowed respectfully. "As long as the humans respect the forest will protect them," he promised. The chief lowered his staff, seeing the peace that had replaced the chaos. "Then perhaps," he said slowly, "this union was not a curse but a new beginning." The girl who became a legend. Years passed, yet Amara never seemed to age like the others. Children whispered stories of the girl who walked freely between village and forest, speaking to trees and calming storms with just her presence. Some called her strange. Some called her blessed. But most called her something else entirely. The bride of the forest. And though many doubted the tale at first, the elders always ended the story with one simple truth. Love that is pure and fearless can unite even worlds that were never meant to touch. And deep within the forest, under the glowing heart tree, Kale and Amara remained together, guardians of balance between humans and spirits, forever bound not by chains, but by choice. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe to the channel to keep you updated in our story.